langon sauba panthoni taibang na saithabade loingam loi panthaugi koloi mingkhaitana maheli ayolna aral ngakpiyu huchang jau sipna punim jai.
Hello everyone. Today I bring to you a unique perspective of India's imagination from the northeast corner, from the state of Manipur. Dr. Deben Bachaspatimayum is an expert on peace studies and conflict resolution. He's dedicated his life to helping population of Manipur preserve its traditions and at the same time, through intercultural communication, dialogue, and understanding, prepare them for a more harmonious, balanced, and considerate future. So over to Deben. Hello, Deben. It's a pleasure to meet you. And what an important moment that I should be talking to you about peace and conflict resolution.
Thank you so much. In fact, we learned so much about Nehru and Gandhi and very less about Madhu Dandavate, your father. And I'm so happy that I learned a glimpse about his life and work. Maybe my participation here in your series of interview is just adding a few more voice from those areas which were unheard before. And I think this kind of conversation is going for the first time. And I don't know, but how time decides on certain things. To me, it seems like over the last few months, ever since Manipur have been experiencing very difficult times, things are on one side, things are pretty bad, very saddening, very demotivating, demoralizing, discouraging. On the other side, I also see that a lot many things are happening that are also happening in the right way. Things are falling into place, and I'm hopeful that as we emerge out of this very difficult situation in Manipur, we should be able to walk on those, in the line of those dreams. And so this conversation for that reason is very important for me also.
Thank you. So I want to start with one very simple question.
Yeah.
Behind me, I've chosen a picture and I put a little word from your article. Can you tell them what you see behind me?
This is a new temple built, I think, over the last 10 years. It took quite a lot of time because the builder is a group of people who are leading the cultural revivalism, which was otherwise suppressed and marginalized by Hinduization of the valley of Manipur some, 300, 500 years ago. And so this is an indication of how the revivalist movement of the traditional belief systems and the practices have met successes in their whole mobilization. This particular temple in our local language is called Kyong. Kyong, yeah. And then these two words that you have chosen, and I'm really happy that you picked up these words. Oini Yani is an alternative to what has become a culture for us to think, to be looking at everything pessimistically. People have become very pessimistic in this part of India. For small little things to big things, whenever we get into some kind of conversation and you are throwing some ideas for solution, the first thing that comes out from anybody's mouth is no, it is not possible. In other words, in our language, it is oiroi yaroi. So the opposite of that is oini yani. So we're trying to set a positive narrative in that article. And not only me, but I'm part of a group called Resurgent Manipur. If you Google, you'll find the website also there. This is a movement initiated by professors and researchers and students across several universities in India who think that Manipur needs some kind of a transformation, and to do that they have to create a new narrative which are positive, inspiring, and hopeful. So this movement, which has not taken on the ground so far, it has been largely in the digital virtual media, and also time to time we meet kind of thing, and there are articles written on it. In between, the COVID happened and so many things happened, and many of us are engaged in our own ways, so hardly find time to hit the streets and the ground to really move the people. But then it has been now this is the 15th year entering into this movement, and we hope to continue this initiative, the movement in changing narratives. Yeah, that's how that's a background of what you have posted here.
That's beautiful. So a couple of things I want to ask, but before that, again, for the sake of our audience, 50, 100 years from now,
right?
Can you just describe Manipur in a way that they can feel what Manipur is and what it stands for?
Sure. You see, like if you look into the geological history of Manipur, this is an outcome of a tectonic movement by which the Gondwana island collided with the Euro-Asian continent, and then the entire Himalayan range emerged as the youngest mountain on this planet. And we are located is the entire Himalayan range runs from west to east, and it takes a southern turn as you go to the east towards the Indo-Myanmar plain, right? So it takes a southerly turn, and so we are in the eastern Himalayas as it falls down towards the Bay of Bengal. So Manipur is located in the north of Manipur is Nagaland. In the north of Nagaland is Arunachal Pradesh, which is also one of the state in the Indo-Myanmar boundary area. So below that is Nagaland, which is also located in the Indo-Myanmar boundary line. And then you have in the south of Nagaland, Manipur. In the south of Manipur is Mizoram. From there, the Indian political map takes a turn without touching the seashore, the Bay of Bengal. So it just simply cuts it, like, and then you come to Tripura, and then in between is Bangladesh, and then you come to this is the map, all right. So we are very close to Myanmar, and we have if you look into the past briefly, Manipur has been ruled by several kings from as early as 33 AD. That is what the historian says are the recorded history starting from 33 AD. So there has been over 60 plus kings who have ruled this state from different period of time. And then okay, so now let me then again geography. On the western side is Assam, where neighboring to Assam. And Manipur, if you look in the physiography of Manipur, it is surrounded by hills uh, uh, with a valley in the middle. So there is a central valley which comprises, which is actually 10% of the entire area of the state. The state is of 22,000 372, no, 732 kilometers. So out of that, 10% comprise the valley, and the remaining is the hills that surrounds the central valley from all sides. And now, in terms of migration, this like as a tectonic movement kept on rising up, and there has been small valleys and hills everywhere on this line. But one of those major hill and valley is Manipur Valley, which slowly, gradually, lifted up, uh, and then the water seeped down, leaving behind. Gradually drying up bottom of the sea, right, which became the valley. So you can imagine those days, like 3,000 years ago, and beyond that, people slowly migrating, and most of the people in Manipur look Mongoloid, belong to the Mongoloid group of people. And if you look at the Bengali population also, they are slightly different because Bengali population is a mixture of the Aryan and the Mongoloids. So their face, looks a little rounded, the head rounded, and so we are like that only. We are also mixed. Although you'll see, Manipur is inhabited by about 35, no, 30, 34 different tribes who also speak their own languages. So you can imagine Manipur is also like a mini India in terms of its diversity of ethnicity, language and culture, and also religion. Because by the 15th century onwards, the valley, the kingdom began to be influenced by Hinduism, and very interestingly, the influence of Hinduism comes from Myanmar. You can see the Cholas and Pallavas having reached, Angkor Wat in Cambodia, and from there the Hinduism returns to Manipur. So the first contact with Hinduism begins from Myanmar side, and later on, of course, when some of the kings of Manipur, due to some conflict in the royal family, had to self-exile. They went towards Silchar, Bengal, the undivided Bengal, years ago. It is during that time, and during that time, I'm talking about 16th century, when there was this religious movement, reformist movement going on, very widely in Bengal, initiated by Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So it is at that time kings of Manipur, in their self-exile outside, came in contact with those cultural influences, and then they bring back some priests from that side, and then patronize the conversion of the population at that time to Hinduism under little bit of strong hand. He has really forced people to subscribe to the new ideas and practices. And so, and this actually, the temple at the background is what got really marginalized during that time. Because another interesting thing about Manipur is that this is the only kingdom in the east of India which has their own script. We use our own script, which is somewhat like Chinese, but quite different from there. And like Assamese in the upper side of Bengal use Bengali script. So we are the only one who have our typical different script, which is more or less like the Chinese. So we had many scriptures which are written in our own script, which was when King met Hinduism as a state religion. on the pretext that these scriptures, these books had black magics. Many of them were made bonfire, and then Bengali script was introduced to as the state, for the purpose of the documentation and also literary development at that point of time. So this pain of marginalization, separation of the indigenous cultural traditions, script, languages, and all of that is carried, through generations till say 1950s and 60s to become a very formidable cultural movement. And the temple that you see behind you is the indication of that, the climax of that movement. So now you can understand Manipur briefly, how religiously we are we are like, and also now if you look at the politically Manipur, it's bit of little bit of painful in the sense that the union with the government of India, with the dominant of India, did not happen in a smooth way. It was again forced. So, generations of people here in Manipur had to repeatedly experience having suppressed, periodically. So another suppression in a very painful way comes when the merger took place of the state to the dominant of India in 1949. In 1947, Manipur state had attained its independence from the British. So the independence was handed over to the king by the British, who used to be in control of the state from 1891. 1891 is the year in which Manipur king and his army fought with the British, and then we got defeated, and so this state had an experience of about 53 years of colonial experience, and after that we regained this independence. But right after independence, we also had our own written constitution by a drafting committee, which was carefully chosen to represent the valley and the hill people. So we had a written constitution in which the hill area, in line with British policy to keep the hill area administration separate, because this is how they did during that period. And so not to, make hill people angry about suddenly unifying them, the constitution respected that separate administration, perhaps with the hope that sometime the hill and valley people will stay together once again, as they used to do before the British came. So with that thought, they agreed to have a little bit separate administration through the representation of the hill area people, but having one assembly. And then by 1948, 18th October 1948, we had gone for election, both hill and valley, based on universal franchise. And then we had an elected body actually of 39 members from hill and valley. And all of a sudden, not even 2 years after this independent democratic country that had emerged, not even 2 years after this very controversial, the merger took place in a very controversial manner, where the king, who had become the constitutional head, he was no more the king who had all the power in his hand, but he had an elected assembly with him. And so he was called out in Shillong in 1949 and kept him isolated in a house, more or less house arrested. And then he was forced to sign following, a lot of mental pressures and things like that. And so he was not allowed to communicate, send a telegraph to the standing assembly members, the chief minister at that time. So there was no communication, his communication was cut off. So which is what actually came as a very heavy suppression again, a repetition of what happened, 300 or 400 years ago, again comes to the, to the minds of the people. And so this resulted into the rise of the anti-Indian revolutionary movement, who wanted to restore the sovereign status prior to merger. So you had from 1964 United Liberation Front coming up, making this statement and also mobilizing people against Government of India, and that they wanted to restore the pre-merger status of the state, which is sovereign Manipur. And then by 1980, they begin to pick up arms because the Government of India did not listen to them, rather they were frustrated. And then they had to finally pick up the arms, because by picking up arms, they thought they will be listened to and there will be some, opportunity to talk to one another and, strengthen, clear things out. Because in a way, because of the cultural influence that Manipur has, which is different from what is happening in Nagaland, Arunachal, and also in Mizoram. Manipur has much influence, Hindu influence in the population, that this state can never be far away from India. Can never be, even when it wants, because of the cultural factor. So you can imagine the mainstream people, let's say about 50% of the population. The life of these 50% of the population, when I said life, I'm meaning the spiritual life also. Their life ends only when the last remains of the cremation, your body, is submerged in river Ganga. So so all the Hinduized population would always feel their life is accomplished only when their last remains is submerged, or they, in their old age, go to Vrindavan or Navadip in Kolkata, or any other such Hindu pilgrimage site. That is how they complete their spiritual life. But the remaining 50% or more are those people whose life begins here in the soils of Manipur and they end here also, because they still maintain this indigenous religious belief and practices, which is popularly known as Sanamahi. Sanamahi, of which the temple is just there behind you.
Right.
So this is what Manipur looks like.
Wonderful.
Yeah, but many people have also described, like for example, Nehru. Nehru used to compare Manipur like the like Kashmir of East, because it more or less have the same features, the hill and the valley in between, and so it looks beautiful. We have the perhaps second largest fresh lake in the southern part of the valley also, which is called Loktak Lake, which has become Ramsar site now, which is a protected site. It's beautiful, but then it has degraded. It is actually the ecology, the lake ecosystem has been kind of spoiled by what by a project, hydro project, because what the lake has become stagnant. It is not renewing itself, itself through its own cycle of seasons and things like that, because of the dam on that. So that's what Manipur looks like.
That's great. So I have a question here.
Yeah.
You talked about this temple representing a movement towards reviving the original
Correct.
culture of
Right.
Manipur. But there's one article you have written where you wrote that my COVID ordeal taught me it's the culture and attitude, not the system, which are the problem in Manipur. So can you elaborate what you mean there?
See, the culture that I have said is that, like, unfortunately, when I reflect on why Manipur has so much of problem, I see during my lifetime, now I'm 60 years old now today, I see that during my childhood also there have been many problems. Students used to go on a hunger strike. Students used to, call for ban on so many issues. But I also see that none of these problems have ever been solved. So it is like all that government does is crisis management. So if students are getting too violent, you call some of them, like get some of the leaders, talk to them, please them, provide them something, divert them to something else, but not solve the problem. So we have piles and piles of problem, never sorted out. And it is because of that, our attitude has become very negative, which is expressed in Oiroi Yaroi. nothing is possible. So this is what immediately comes out of anybody's mind when you get in any conversation and you start suggesting some way out. The first thing that comes out from anybody from bottom to the top is no, it is not possible to say in English. So this is what I refer to. Unless we change this culture of how should I say, uh, looking at the situation, is that we have somehow developed a culture of uh, seeing at the situation as uh, we have never been able to see any situation positively. It is negative, it is adversarial, and things are not going to work. So just survive. That is the kind of philosophy that is set in.
So I have a question here.
Yeah.
I do a lot of research by traveling around the world. I
Correct.
study people, I study change, I study cultures.
Mm.
And I find that younger generation,
Mm.
like children who are 15 to 22-year-old right now,
Correct.
they have a mindset where they are not burdened as much by history
Correct.
as our generation.
Right.
They are more free.
Mm.
They feel free and they feel eager to create their own future without
Mm.
burdening by the past.
Correct.
What is the youth like in Manipur? Are they burdened by what you are saying? Or do they have a different view of their own future and India's future?
See, unfortunately, this younger generation are not bordered, as you said rightly. I think it is true everywhere also. It is because of the technological, revolution that has taken place over the last maybe 2 decades, probably 3 decades. These technologies have overtaken the cultural growth, cultural slow and gradual evolution of the culture everywhere. In fact, we are perhaps living in a culture which is alien to the traditional culture because of the economic, global economic, like systems and processes that are going on, supported, empowered by the new technology, IT technology, and all that. So we are all together in a flux. We don't know how to handle this, but then we also think because perhaps you and I'm much younger than you, but then I also belong to that old traditions, which has got a little bit of rooting in their own cultures and traditions and things like that. Our concern is also that, if you allow the way the younger generation looks at it, I think they are going to, the road ends very, 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 not very far away. The entire modern development perhaps has come to a road end, and beyond that is a disaster. And so we're talking about the climate change and global warming and tipping point and all that. And so here it is not about since we have started talking about from 2015 sustainable development as the major framework of considering our present life. I think, and this is what the effort now has become of the government of India also, because this is something that is referred to in every important speeches given by prime minister to all ministers. So I think this education should make our younger generation who are uprooted, barely uprooted from their history and culture, to rethink. And there is an indication that some young people are also doing that, because they also see, see, as a young people, you get excited of the smart life. You sit in a smart office and enjoy all comforts of life. You move from AC car to AC market to AC office and AC sleeping room, and you actually are cut off from the natural world. So people are getting fed up with it also, in a way. It is not that the whole of younger generations are one way and the older generation on the other. Even among the younger generation, there are some reflections going on because of the education that we have started talking about sustainable development and limit to how much we exploit ourselves also, our own life. If we put ourselves to maximum use in order to, increase our comfort and giving no rest our body, mind, and things like that is having our own, kind of making ourselves suffer more than what we could really enjoy fully, mentally, spiritually, and socially. So I think this realization also coming somewhere. And so I'm hopeful that the younger generation and the older generation like us can also come face to face in our time, during our time, and sit down together. And this is what the beginning is all about.
So one question here. I know
Yeah.
you are very active in promoting peace and interfaith communication.
Right.
Does your work take you to young people, and how young?
I have not been able to work with very young children, but with college students I do work because I taught in a college for 3 years after having worked for about 25 years in the NGO sector. I taught for 3 years in Nagaland, the neighboring state, in a college which was providing MSW, Master of Social Work. And they had introduced this subject called peace and conflict transformation, and which is an area of my work also through my through my time in the NGO sector. So based on my experience, I used to take this subject for the postgraduate final year students of MSW. And so my interaction with younger generation is institutional and also outside, because I do a lot of training at the community level also. And I also visit other university. I'm involved. I'm now working in a small group called PINE. PINE stands for Peace Initiative of Northeast. And we're a small group of people who think that people in Northeast has experienced enough violence. We should be reflecting, average people must be reflecting, particularly elder generations who have experienced violence over the last 4 or 5 generations together, who has traumatic experience carried over, transferred from one generation to another generation, must be reflecting on some ideas about peace. So why don't we gather all these, their experience with violence, which is still continuing, and also their ideas for peace, and let's see how we can put the ideas together and develop a curriculum which we call locally informed, globally relevant peace education curriculum for undergraduate students. That's what we are trying to do. And so through this work, I interact with younger generation, who are say in 20s and 20s, basically 20s and 30s. Yeah.
So who's the most effective in communicating with very young generation?
Younger generations
Who
are
they listen to most? And who,
they,
when I say who, it could mean a person, it could mean books, it could mean movies. Where do they look for inspiration and imagination?
the young people are, as I observe, excited about new ideas. They listen to music, they listen to any new fashionable way of speaking, doing, acting, new ideas. So I think the social media has become one very attractive site for the younger generation. And in fact, is elsewhere, a younger generation are spending much more time. Even small kids are spending much more time on the small screen than they have with their parents or any other members in the family. This is what exactly is happening, not only in Manipur but in the whole of northeastern region, any state. Because I have,
So
yeah.
from all of these influences,
Mm.
who do you think serve as their role models? Either real people or characters from fiction or from history?
Um, during our time, this question used to strike our mind, and we used to think about very famous, like statements to be our role model and things like that. But I think these days, this concept of role model is also changing. Uh, people are looking at fashionable, fashionable things, or like as role model, like beauty pageants and pop singers and all these kind of characters, like seem to be more attractive to the younger generation. But for the kids, it is character like cartoon films are something that are more attractive to them than any other persons on the.
So
Or,
would you say a cartoon character is more of a role model than say Narendra Modi or Mahatma Gandhi or Nehru or Subhash Chandra Bose?
Yeah, I think for the younger kids, I'm saying they are glued to these cartoons, and I'm quite surprised because for us, we speak a language which doesn't belong to the Indo-Aryan group of family, or language belong to Indo-Tibetan, Indo-Tibetan group of family. So personally, I felt it was quite a struggle for me to pick up Hindi when I studied in Delhi. But then these days, average children, across the neighborhood, speak Hindi as if their mother tongue is Hindi, and they learn this from the cartoon movies like Chota Bhim, for instance, right?
Mhm.
It has become very popular, and then yeah, I mean, like we have now generation of kids who are now turning, I think, 14. They are in teens now. Let's say about for the last 15 years, we have kids who can speak Hindi very well right in their family. I mean, in fact, when these kids meet together, they speak in Hindi as if it is a mother tongue.
So do they?
So,
So can let me ask you this question: the fact that they speak Hindi because of this access to digital media,
right.
does that make them feel more a part of India, or do they feel more a part of their
They-
tradition?
yeah, I think these kids, when they go to any Hindi speaking states in India, they will feel belong to more than what we used to experience, our
Mhm.
generation. Because for our generation, everything was alien and strange. And the kind of experience we used to have while we were in Delhi, we were treated very differently, not as one who belonged to the larger Indian society, but then, like discriminated most often, for this or that, negative appreciation of our differences. So I think this is an experience that the younger generation will have the least, perhaps, because of the digital media, like teaching them so many languages, not only Hindi, but English also, both sides.
So this
Uh,
is interesting. So Hindi has had an effect of almost like integration with
yeah.
India amongst the
Mm.
younger generation, especially the migrant population from Manipur. Correct?
Yeah. For the younger generation, when they go to Delhi or UP or Rajasthan, when they interact with the people out there, they will not feel very strange compared to the experience that we have. And
Hmm.
then, but when they really work together, live together, like in the Hindi speaking states, the life experience could be different. But as far as and suppose they are traveling to say UP for the first time, they will not feel themselves very strange. But our generation used to feel very strange because I took how many, I think almost a year to pick up Hindi correct sentences, right? I went to Delhi very young, when I was 12. But it took 3 months to pick up few sentences, and then I kept on adding, and then by the first year I was able to manage. So that is not the scenario now.
I got it. The
So you have.
second question I have, in
Mm,
your earlier part of our conversation, you
yeah,
talked about the original culture of Manipur, and
correct,
then the Hindu culture was imposed on Manipur. So it was
correct.
kind of a traumatic memory, at least in the
Mm,
earlier generations of
yeah.
Manipur.
Mm,
And now there was a revivalist movement. This temple represents that.
yes, yes.
Now, in this context, what does the current political atmosphere of creating a Hindu Rashtra mean to an average Manipur person?
It's a very complicated situation now. Um, the uh, the revivalists on the other side are they are divided into two groups. One who are radicals, okay, who see the threat more these days. You know, the collection of the earlier memory is happening now because we have very active RSS group operating in the valley, So there has been always a tension, and it is for this. I think this, like the effective presence of RSS people, who are also our own people actually.
Mhm.
I told you, that you can see the Manipuri in the valley in two parts. One whose life ends in rest of India in some Hindu pilgrimage site, and another ends here itself. No, so these broad divisions, culturally and also religiously, spiritually, is a fact. And so the the uh, the indigenous Maitei, indigenous Maitei population, they don't call themselves Hindu in the first place. They identify themselves as Sanamahi people, and then I think they have also succeeded in registering in the census of India of their religion also as Sanamahi or others, something like that, to differentiate themselves from the rest of the Hinduized mainstream. The Hinduized has become the mainstream, right? This is also fact. Now, I said this Sanamahi group are broken into two parts. One part thinks that we have no choice but to work together. The other part say the radical group says no, we have nothing to do with. We still have to maintain our identity separate, and so we have to do it as long as we can. So there's little bit of these are all political engineering also.
Right.
Now that the state is under BJP over the last two terms, and this second term has been very challenging, and it is during the second term the unprecedented way of violence has also taken place. So um, so like like but you see like the you see like another dimension to add to this is that when I said RSS has been active in Manipur, if I'm not mistaken, it has started from 1970s, not even 60s, the 70s onwards. It began to, from one to another few people, and then it has got a good presence in the population. And they are a very decisive, influential group in the governance also. Now, this political and change has also threatened not only the indigenous Meitei, but also the rest of the population in the hills, which comprises of about 45 percentage of the total population. They are all Christians, and so they also feel a lot of challenges and the threat from the whole political change processes that are taking place in the valley. And so there's a lot of tension not only within the Meitei community in the valley, but also between the hill and valley because of this situation that has come up over the last less than 10 years. Yeah, let's say 10 years now for time being. And so it is a very difficult situation now. In fact, radicalization has taken place in different ways. RSS has also been able to directly or indirectly influence formation of some radical group, in the Hindu section as well and this is also similar reflection on the other side, the Maitei Sanamahi group. They also have their radical group. So, and the Maitei population, another fact about Maitei population is that although we speak one single language, our mother tongue Maitei, but then we are also very divided. One thing is the religious divide between this religious divide has further added on because we have small population of Buddhists, we have small population of Islam, uh, who also speak the same language as mother tongue. We also have a growing population of Christian in the Maitei population itself. So Maitei population has become multi-religious community. It used to be only Hindu and Sanami. Now it has become much more diversified, and so also the complexity within and the tensions between each of these sections. So that is what has been really worrying us. And so when this violence broke out this time, May 3rd, we were shocked because I was, at least personally, was not able to accept that this can happen in Manipur, but it has happened, and I accepted it. And I realized that over the first 1 month, all these religious leaders were simply helpless. They were sitting back helpless because they could not even say a word of cautioning any youth who were indulged in violence, against the other. None of these religious leaders, whether Christian, the Hindu, or Muslim, could say a single word to stop them or prevent them. And if they did it, they would have lost their life also. It was such a tense, emotionally so intense moment that all these leaders, they were simply silently sitting back helplessly. It is at such time we connected one another, and simply it came out. The Interfaith Forum that you have mentioned about, where I'm engaged in now, simply came out very spontaneously when we just call one another.
So I have one question here. I'm going to just say a few things, and then I'll come to you. When India gained independence, our founding fathers talked about unity in diversity.
Correct.
Right? That was kind of a binding message where we respect the uniqueness of every indigenous culture, but and our beauty of India is in its respect for diversity.
Right.
Now, I want to give another example from America. For a very long time, American metaphor for what America is, they used to call it a crucible. A crucible where world cultures come, they are grinded, and they become one American culture, a unique American culture. But over a period of time, as interculturalism gained ground, they challenged the metaphor of crucible and they turned it into a salad. And what they said is America is a salad where every ingredient preserves its uniqueness, but when it all comes together, it creates a combined flavor that is a salad, right? And I would say that metaphor of a salad, personally, to me, is more appealing because I'm a minority in America. Also, it aligns with unity and diversity idea. It also aligns with my belief in secularism of the kind, not of atheist secularism, but the secularism where everybody has the right to pursue their faith. So having said all of these different phenomena that are emerging, do you think any of these ideas or a new metaphor or a new idea would pave the way for a more peaceful coexistence?
This is very important. I'd love to answer this. You see, like we begin with telling about what Manipur looks like in the beginning, and I have been presenting a very negative, worrisome picture of what Manipur looks like, very negative. But then it also has a positive side of it, and I want to start with that. Manipur actually, as you said rightly, what Americans thought earlier is a boiling pot. Manipur indeed is a boiling pot. Exactly in the same way, Gangetic Valley, civilization emerged in India. And Romila Thapar used to talk about the India as a boiling pot of cultures, and diverse race and cultures and all that. Similar is the story of Manipur. Now, I was talking about the Central Valley, 10% of the land area, and 90% is the hill, ranges of hills surrounding from all sides. It is from these all sides that people, different bands, different tribes have been migrating into the valley. As time passes, as the valley begin to show up, the bottom dry land for people to settle. And so you can imagine, like different groups of people with speaking different languages converging into the valley and fighting among themselves for supremacy. in those days, thousands of years ago. And out of that series of fighting, one is fighting against, it's all out kind of thing. You just have to establish your supremacy, because in those days, without establishing your supremacy, there was no scope for mutual understanding, because there was no language to speak. There was no common language to speak. People have no common experience of having ever lived together. All right. So they were just trying to negotiate how to live with one another, but they did it violently. So if you do violently, it is the conquered and the victory and the loser, right? So it is the history of Manipur, like India, the history of India before the British is all about win and lose, winner's story. So we have, but in the process of it, it had become a boiling point, which is not like salad. Boiling. There was a time of Manipur Valley becoming a boiling pot of diverse cultures and people from different backgrounds, until there were kings, the feudal structures were there. Because the feudal lord had to pulverize you to become one uniform, He had to pulverize the differences, bid the differences into something he liked to design his society about. Like, so as long as feudal system continue, this boiling pot happened, because it was the feudal structure. But then any time when these feudal structures transited into some kind of a democratic form of administration and governance, like that's how the American society emerged in sometime in 18th century, much earlier. So Manipur also transited into that kind of structure, institutional change. As I was telling, sometime in 1947, after independence, we had transited into a democratic society, and then people had high hope of now being respected of their identities and diversity. They were talking about 35 different tribes inhabiting the hills. These are all linguistic groups. They differ from one another, and each of them have very clear boundaries of their land. And they are, I would call them as micronations, in the hills. And in the valley, you have one king who had succeeded in establishing his supremacy over all other competing principalities at that time throughout the valley. And he set up this state, his monarchy, the feudal structure. And in the hills, you had not yet become monarchy, but because of the economic factor also. Because in the hills, people still used to live in their subsistent economy and never had a surplus. But in the valley, because of the plain, structure and fertility of the land, the people has surplus. So also the emergence of the state, the monarchy there. And then those small, like micronations in the hills who had their language, nationhood, and the boundary, had very cordial relations with the king in the valley. There was not unnecessarily superimposition of one another. That is the story until the British came. Okay, so when I was talking about this beautiful, marriage of, even though it happened little violently, it became a beautiful harmonious relations between the Hindu and the Sanamahi later. Although it began violently by burning, the old scriptures, by forcing the people to follow Hinduism now, like Vaishnavism as such. So we have very popular Rastriya. You must have seen some of those. So now is it like the marriage, let's say the encounter between the Hinduism and the Sanamahi happened because the king patronized it. It was forceful, it was painful, but later on they harmonized. Now, if you come to my house someday, there is this southwest corner of my house where I still every day bow down my head to the Sanamahi. We have this corner preserved for the Sanamahi. Every house would have it. But if you walk out of my house, then you'll see the temple where I worship Radha Krishna every day. So this is the harmony that we maintain. So what is happening to Manipur culture, which is the beautiful part, the beauty part of it, the positive side of it, which we call, we actually identify ourselves as a composite culture, not exclusive, composite, always open, accommodative, and accepting. But something went wrong in this process. And I'll come back to that before that. But then this harmony, once you have encountered, you negotiate, and then you settle. When you settle it, you are finding the meaning of unity in diversity here. So Manipuri is the identity that binds us together. But when you go back to your home, you are a Maitei or a Brahmin. And we still maintain that, we maintain every Brahmin family maintain the respect to the indigenous deity that sits inside my house. So every house, for that matter, is a temple for us, where we closely live with the indigenous deity. So there is no question of, there is no question of one overwriting the other.
I get it. So one
Yeah.
question I have, when we started the conversation, you with a great pride said you are a Brahmin, and that amongst your brothers, you take turns going to the temple once a week, right?
Right.
So now I would like to have a rational answer from you, not an emotional answer.
Correct.
So you do take pride in being a Brahmin, which means basically being a Hindu. Do you think the current political agenda of providing a Hindu Rashtra umbrella would bring a solution to the strife within India? Do you subscribe to that?
I'd like to look at this question from two angles.
Right.
One is let me say that as the higher meaning of Hindu Rashtra, higher, the spiritual level. Or in other words, the spirit of Sanatana Dharma. Where the plurality is respected much higher than the unifying forces, right? If we locate ourselves at that higher level, yes, very much. I'm very positive about Hindu Rashtra without happening without negating the others, but accepting, respecting the diversities, and actually implementing the spirit of Sanatana Dharma. Not necessarily politicizing it, making a political agenda, but slowly and gradually through education. Okay, through education, this thing can happen, and I see this possibility in the National Education Policy 2020 also, although not many people look at it very critically. Yes, I do also look at it very critically, but at the same time, I also say that there are windows of opportunities where we can, if we really make an effort, we can make a difference there within this. And politics is not going to help. Politics can support that, but then politics cannot override the education. That's one level. Second level is, it is a bit risky if you try to force, politically, the Hindu Rashtra. This is not going to happen, because this is going to get into a lot of confrontation everywhere. Because every diversity is going to stand up and take their position. And I think these are unnecessary the confrontations that should take place. And so therefore, I'm totally against radicalization of any religion. And
So what is your interpretation of the current politics of the politics of Hindu Rashtra?
You see, let me put it this way, because I understand the beauty of being a Hindu, and also the whole idea of Sanatana Dharma and all that. I think that the current politics or current political dispensation has unnecessarily, I mean, I'm using a very strong term here, but with certain reservations, unnecessarily got into a self-contradictory mode. For the reason that if at all you have to promote Hindu Rashtra based on Sanatana, the spirit of Sanatana, then you have to have an appropriate economy to support that.
Tell me more.
Yes, see, like the current government is pushing ahead India to become 5 trillion economy, or perhaps the richest country in the world. I think this is a wrong path chosen, because India is already ahead of all the country because of its spiritual cultural civilization. You don't need to push ahead militarily or economically. So this politics I have serious problem with, because it is very destroying the very idea of Ram Raja or Hindu Raja that you talk about. You think that this is possible only when you become the richest person, but I say you have to be the most powerful philosopher, that you speak and people follow.
Right.
You don't need economic power to push the idea of Hindu Rashtra.
So I have a creative exercise, a mind exercise for you.
Correct.
You have lived in Manipur, where you have experienced transitions from history to today,
Right.
and both the good and the traumatic experiences that the population has experienced.
Correct.
For a moment, if you put your mind in Kashmir, yeah, and
Right.
I'm not asking you to make any controversial statement, but more of an academic exercise.
Right.
In Kashmir, and I'm not saying Jammu, Kashmir, just like Manipur has seen itself as on the sidelines of mainstream India and has evolved over time, what picture do you see from Kashmir?
Well, I think in the whole, tug of war, the Kashmir taken is the rope, okay, of the tug of war game between India and Pakistan. The integrity of what Kashmir is all about, rooted in Sufism, that unique identity that this particular geography and polity has shaped through ages is gone somewhere, is somewhere marginalized or sidelined. And this, I think, is unfortunate. If I were a Kashmir, I would think that way also, as much as I do think here, because you also asked this question. The previous question was, do I feel proud of being Brahmin in Manipur? Like I have undergone through several self-reflection. As I grew up, I even dropped, I said, my name is B. Deben Sharma. I consciously dropped this title Sharma. I used to be known as B. Deben all the time, right? And so when people ask B, what is B, then I used to expand. It's a little long, B. Bachaspatimayum. That's my clan name of the Brahmin, which was given to us by the king. Now, as I begin to had my identity as Brahmin as I grew up, as I transited from school to the college. That was a very transitory kind of moments in my life also. I realized that much of the problem in Manipur today you have is because of you. Brahmin created it. It was Brahmin who influenced the king and stratified the otherwise equivalent society at that point of time. There was no idea of untouchability, high and low, at that point of time before Hinduization took place. The hill and valley used to have very harmonious relation of cooperating at sometimes when there are difficult situations. When the Maitei king used to feel threatened from outside or from somewhere inside, he used to run into the hills, And some of the most prominent tribes in the hills are considered as our elder brothers, and they look at us as a younger brother. And this is a living culture today also. If you come to Manipur, I will show in a particular, like come the month of April, May, you will see a big bamboo pole in front in the courtyard where we would put up a lamp every night, and that is a symbolic connection between the hill brother and the younger brother in the valley. The younger brother is trying to tell the brother in the hills that I'm okay by showing that light in the night. So this happens throughout the month of that particular season, and so these are living culture of how harmonious, closely connected we are, despite the differences of religions and culture and all that. Okay, so then some reflection took place further on as I transited from my college life to work in the NGO field. Then I reflected and said that, okay, whatever I am, this is a fact. I'm not born in a Hindu family, so let me feel good about it. Okay, let me accept that I'm born in it, and let's see what I can do good out of this. So that's why I had already positioned myself to be engaging in this kind of dialogue with you also. So I finally reconciled myself that, look, the fact is that I'm born in a Brahmin family, and this is my identity, and I'm also responsible for much of the social, social problems that has created divisions among the people, some untouchability practices and high and low kind of a concept in the society and all that. I own all those responsibility, and I try to be a different person while being a Brahmin by doing away with all these, social vices that we have learned from the predecessors. Now,
That's a wonderful answer. And in fact, it's a very well thought out answer.
yeah,
So I will ask you one last question.
yeah,
It, and you might give two answers because I wanted to think about a child, means about a teenager child 3 generations from now.
correct.
A child in Manipur and a child in India. There are two
Right,
different childs. You
correct.
might have two different messages for them or the same. I don't know. I'm giving you the freedom to select one or two
Mm-hmm.
messages.
Mm-hmm.
What message would you like to leave for them when you are not there anymore? Those children from 3 generations from now are listening to this dialogue. Say something to them. First, either to just Manipuri child or an Indian child or one message. What would you like to do first? Separate or one?
Well, one, of course, yeah, and then separately also
Hmm.
at the same time. And incidentally, actually, this is the same thing that I was just typing to one of my friend in the WhatsApp before we set for this conversation. I said, whatever decision we take today on difficult situation that Manipur is facing, we have to keep our grandchildren in front of us while taking decisions for the problems today, and that perhaps we should be able to take the right decisions also. So that was my kind of criteria to my friend who I was communicating with. So I certainly looked, and that's a wonderful way of looking into the future, so that the present, we are able to handle the present in that direction. Every parents, including you and I and many others concerned, would always like to leave something good for the great grandchildren. And so therefore, my message to both uh, the great grandchild in Manipur and great grandchild in Gujarat or Maharashtra uh, is that you have no choice but to live together. And second thing that I will say is, uh, it is India is a diverse country, so uh, it is out of this diversity that you have to find the unity by understanding one another. So I would leave uh, some practices, maybe an institution where children are taught to dialogue rather than debate. I think we have debated enough. We have debated enough. We are playing the same war game everywhere in our life. We are playing the war game among the brothers and sisters within the family, where we are being taught to do the same war game, win and lose in the education from primary to university level. We are doing the same thing when you get into jobs because you always want to get better off the other. So it's a competition, win and lose. So we have lived enough in win and lose. So the message that I would in simple way of what I had said earlier is that it's time for us to live by winning together. So we need to learn the language of dialogue, and this is what I would leave behind for our children. How to dialogue with others.
Wonderful. And you said you might have a message for Manipuri children.
Yeah, this is what I would say. I would say to my Manipuri
Great grandchild.
grandchildren to maintain their identity and remain rooted. So also the same thing to children, your children, great grandchildren in Gujarat or Maharashtra, whichever cultural history they belong to, be rooted because it is, and this is what very interestingly said very clearly in the National Education Policy 2020 also. Rootedness has been given and has been emphasized quite a lot. So I'm very excited about it. So I think we are in the best of the time, to do something wonderful, to solve many problems. And so in that regard, I think being rootedness, so preserve your identity. If you are a Manipuri, what Manipuri is all about, do you do you have in your life, can your life be an example of what being Manipuri is all about, which is also a composite culture? So therefore, how you would relate with your immediate brothers in the hills, all of that. So that the true cultural character of each of these identity, and because each of these identities have not always fought against one another, they also have lived together. So that living together experience has to be brought up and emphasized because we cannot fight any more war now because this is a decision taken by international community way back in the year 2000 that we are leaving behind the history of war and violence, and we are moving ahead to create another history of culture of non-violence and peace is what the United Nations declared in the year 2000. We are 20 years down the line, and so perhaps we should be able to walk on that line.
Wonderful.
Thank you so much. I mean, I really appreciate this connection, and I'm quite sure this must be by some design.
Yes.
As I said, lot many things are happening, which I call as pleasant surprises. I never thought that I would get connected with you in this way, and we should be doing exactly the things that I wanted, you also wanted, in the manner that we talk to one another. Great gurus in India have already taught us, so many times that we have to seek it from inside. And while on one side India is, radicalized, and then there are a lot of violence, on the other side you have contemporary gurus who are also teaching, the younger generation to look inside. And so perhaps both things are happening, and I wish that the looking inside wins slowly and gradually to find that peace for all of us. And I think the best way to end is the Gayatri mantra, peace with everybody, peace
Thank
with
you.
myself, with others, and peace with the whole universe. Thank you
Thank
so
you
much.
very much. It was a pleasure to meet you.
Thank you so much. Namaskar.